Perhaps the greatest pleasure of being a scientist is to have an abstract idea, then to do an experiment, more often a series of experiments is required, that demonstrates that the idea was correct. That is, that nature actually behaves as conceived in the mind of the scientist. This process is the essence of creativity in science, and I'm proud that I have been fortunate to experience this intense pleasure many times in my life. People typically think that scientists are risk-averse and that scientists do not tolerate risks. It's not true. In fact, risk-taking is part of our lives. Every time we publish an article, we take on risk. We try to make certain that the data are correct, but it is impossible to be absolutely certain. We seriously try to give the correct interpretation of the data. But the very process of research involves pushing beyond what was known previously. That process involves taking risks. Scientists take risks all the time. And of course, the more interesting the result, the bigger the risk. Consider, for example, Einstein's discovery of the photon in 1905. 9 years later, in 1914, Max Planck, the greatest physicist of his day, proposed the younger Einstein for membership in the Prussian Academy of Science. In his speech to the Academy, he praised Einstein's contribution to science, but he commented that Einstein may sometimes have missed the target in his speculations, as, for example, in his hypothesis of the light quanta. This should not really be held too much against him, for it is not possible to introduce fundamentally new ideas even in the exact sciences without occasionally taking a risk. Einstein, as you know, received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1922 for the discovery of photon, not, as many people think, for his theory of relativity. Interdisciplinary science is even more risky. The reason is fairly obvious. Educated as a physicist, I had a core of knowledge where I felt very comfortable. Each time I reached out beyond that core, I was exposing my ignorance. But reaching out into new directions involves learning new concepts and finding a way to meld those new concepts into what one had previously known. Exploring new directions is the first step toward creativity and discovery. After coming to the University of California, here at Santa Barbara, I maintained my world-class leadership in interdisciplinary science. And I also caught the California entrepreneurial disease. My first company, Uniax Corporation, was founded in 1990. Uniax succeeded and was acquired by DuPont in the year 2000. I subsequently co-founded 2 biotech companies, both of which currently are doing very well with exciting promise for approaches to the cure of cancer. Let me conclude with this brief welcoming message with some advice for young scientists who aspire to scientific accomplishments that would impact to generate nominations and eventually to possibly even result in the award of a future Nobel Prize. Cherish creativity. Be bold and have the audacity to seek to discover. You can do it. Do not lose your nerve. Remember that creativity and discovery necessarily involve risk. Dealing with that risk is part of the thrill and satisfaction of a life in science.